Hey guys, so I'm going to try to make this under 10 minutes. We'll see how it goes. You'll see me looking off screen because I've scripted this in an attempt to keep down the amount of time that I am on this video. And the other thing I want to say before we get started is that mental health is actually not what I have a degree in. I have a degree in public health. My specialty is epidemiology and biostatistics. All the information that I'm giving on my page comes from either my own research or my personal experiences and should never be used as a way to diagnose yourself or somebody else. Seek somebody who is licensed to do that, please. And without further ado, welcome to the second video I'm making about narcissistic personality disorder. Today we're going to cover the symptoms of narcissistic personality disorder. So I'm going to paraphrase the criteria that's outlined in the DSM-V, otherwise known as the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, or as I like to call it, the Psychology Bible, because that's basically what it is. To quote the criteria word for word would make this video much longer than I need it to be because I would probably have to break it down and explain certain things. I have already done that in the script, so hopefully saving us a little bit of time. But if you are interested in seeing the exact wording as it's written in the DSM-V, I will go ahead and link to a picture from New York universities with one of their courses where they actually printed out the DSM-V page and they have it online, and I will show it to you. Also shows you the DSM-4, but remember DSM-4 is completely obsolete. So anyway, in order for a diagnosis of narcissistic personality disorder, the following 5 criteria have to be met. The first one is that, like all personality disorders, a person is required to have impairments in personal functioning as well as pathological personality traits. The first box is a long one because it covers both of them, and both of them have options. First, we're going to take a look at personal functioning, and this is divided into 2 categories that must be met: the self and interpersonal. To meet this, a person must have problems in both self and interpersonal functioning. It's not one or the other, they must have both. So, to have an impairment in self and to have a diagnosis of narcissistic personality disorder, a person must have an impairment issue with their identity or their self-direction. A person checks the box for an identity issue if they consistently have to refer to what other people think in order to define who they are. If they rely on other people to regulate their self-esteem. If they believe that they are more special than they really are. If they have sense of entitlement that puts others beneath them. They may fluctuate between believing that they are more special than they really are and that sense of entitlement. Their emotions and their self-esteem are like a mirror. So if the self-esteem is low, then the need for attention is high because mirrors are opposite of what you are. If the self-esteem is high, the need for attention is low. If a person does not have an impairment in self as defined by the DSM, they must have an impairment with self-direction. A person checks the box for self-direction impairment if they base their goals off seeking approval from others. These tend to be people of higher status. If they set standards for themselves which are completely unattainable because they believe that they are exceptional, or they set standards that are too low for themselves because they feel entitled. The problem with this is that somebody with narcissistic personality disorder may not realize that they are doing this. If a person has an impairment in their ability to self-function, which was the first 2 that we talked about, then we also need to figure out if they have an impairment in their interpersonal functioning, otherwise known as how they relate to other people. To do this, we evaluate a person's empathy and intimacy responses. If there's an impairment in either, the person has impairments in interpersonal functioning, but they must have at least one. A person who's impaired in empathy will have an impaired ability to recognize or identify with the feelings and needs of other people. They may be really attuned to the reactions of others, but only if it has to do with them. Or they will over or underestimate the effect that they have on and over other people. When we look at intimacy, where a person with impairment will have relationships that are largely superficial. Those relationships tend to only be in those relationships as a way to build their own self-esteem. They don't have a genuine interest in other people because the experiences of their relationships tend to be focused on their own personal gain. Excuse me. So if you can say that they either have an issue with their intimacy or their empathy, then yes, we know for a fact they have interpersonal functioning impairment. So if they have both impaired personality and impaired interpersonal functioning, we can go ahead and check that first box and move on to the second one. Remember how I said that personality disorders have to have both issues in personal functioning as well as pathological personality traits? Well, that's what we're going to talk about now, pathological personality traits. This is not an and/or statement. A person can have one or the other, or they can check both boxes. The first is antagonism. In this case, it means having a low level of agreeableness, and it has two subcategories. The first is grandiosity. Grandiosity is basically where they think that they are better than everybody else and they believe that they are entitled to something. The second is attention seeking, and that's just what it sounds like. They need to be the center of attention. Now that we've determined that our hypothetical person has issues with their personal functioning and has pathological personality traits, we get to look at 3 more questions. But these questions are really quick and really easy. The first question we got to ask ourselves is, are these impairments and personality traits consistent? Have these been an ongoing issue and not something that just cropped up out of the blue? As long as this is not a new issue, we can ask ourselves the next question. There needs to be a built history of repeated narcissistic behavior in order to be diagnosed with narcissistic personality disorder. It's not something you just wake up with. The second question that we need to ask is, can these personality traits be a result of cultural or social economical background, or are we unlikely to see people with similar backgrounds and cultures act the same way? If you were to take our hypothetical person here, and put them against somebody who has the exact same cultural and socioeconomic background, if they do not act the same way, or we cannot explain away our hypothetical person's actions based off of socioeconomics and culture, we can move on to the last question. And the last question is, are these actions a result of someone being impaired from alcohol, prescription drugs, or legal drugs? This also includes if they've had anything like a TBI or a traumatic brain injury, or any injury that would impair their ability to think or interfere with their personality in general. If not, then the person more than likely has narcissistic personality disorder. I went through that really quickly, and some things may not have been as clear as you would have liked, so I'm going to go ahead and rapid fire a quick list of general symptoms a person with narcissistic personality disorder is likely to exhibit. A person with narcissistic personality disorder may have an exaggerated sense of self-importance, a sense of entitlement and require constant and excessive admiration. Expect to be recognized as superior even without achievements that warrant it. Be preoccupied with fantasies about success, power, brilliance, beauty, and the perfect mate. Believe that they are superior and can only associate with equally special people. Monopolize conversations and belittle or look down upon people who they perceive as inferior. Expect special favors and unquestioning compliance with their expectations. Take advantage of others to get what they want. An inability or unwillingness to recognize the needs and the feelings of others. Being envious of others or expecting others to be envious of them. behaving in arrogant or haughty manners that come across as boastful or pretentious. Insisting on having the best of everything, best cars, best office, best house. Those are some pretty basic, this person, something's not right, and they're all narcissistic behaviors. So, next video I'm going to go ahead and talk about a little bit more about me and what it was like growing up as a child to a parent that had narcissistic personality disorder. How it shaped me and some of the struggles that I went through and stuff like that. So I'm going to end this video. I did pretty good because I'm only at like under 11 minutes. I'm pretty proud of myself. Yay! That voice was really annoying. I don't know why I did it. Anyway, thank you for listening. Stay safe, and I'll see you next time.